I moved into the house on Sycamore Lane because it was cheap. That's the honest truth. I didn't care much about the peeling paint or the way the stairs groaned underfoot. I didn't mind the overgrown yard or the single cracked window in the front room. What I needed was quiet, a place to work and maybe forget a few things. The house gave me that. At first, it was a narrow two-story, built sometime in the 1920s, with an attic I never intended to use and a basement I didn't want to see. The wallpaper was old, the kind that yellowed with time and curled at the corners. It had a faint floral pattern, the kind that reminded me of waiting rooms and faded photo albums. The day I moved in, I listened a while longer. Nothing. Eventually, I turned off the lamp and fell asleep. But the next night, it came again. Rustle, pause, scratch, like fingertips moving over parchment. Too deliberate to be the wind. This time, I leaned closer. It wasn't random. It came in patterns, short, then long, like breathing, or words too quiet to understand. And when I pressed my ear to the wall, I thought I heard something beneath the scratching. A voice, faint and low, whispering. I didn't sleep much after. I stepped back. My skin felt tight, my mouth dry. The house was cold again. I covered the spot with a towel and went downstairs. I made tea I didn't drink. I watched the shadows move across the kitchen tiles until the sky turned pale. That day, I called the landlord, a woman with a clipped voice and little patience. "No one's ever complained about that house," she said. "You're the first tenant in over a year, though. The last guy just left. No notice. Didn't even want his deposit back." Did he say, listen? I stopped trying to sleep. I stayed up reading, writing, walking laps around the kitchen just to keep the silence filled with sound. But the house was always listening. It had a patience I didn't. The whispers grew clearer, still faint, but sharper. I could almost pick out syllables. Almost. They weren't in a language I recognized. Or maybe they were just spoken too quietly, too close to the edge of dreaming. One night, I heard a knock, not at the door, but inside the walls. 3 soft taps, as if something with fingers had grown. That night, I dreamed I was sitting in the chair. The walls pulsed around me, and the voices filled the room like water in a sinking ship. They whispered in a language I didn't know, but in the dream, I understood them perfectly. "You opened the door," they said. "Now you have to listen." When I woke, I was in the chair. The real one, in the hidden room. I don't remember walking there. My feet were bare, my hands cold. And carved into my palm, faint and trembling, were letters, fresh and raw. Lis. I hadn't thought about my uncle in years, not until the letter arrived. It came in an envelope with no return address, the paper thick and yellowed, the ink slightly smeared. It bore the name of a law office I didn't recognize, and inside was a formal notice of inheritance. In accordance with the final wishes of Elias Mercer, you are named sole beneficiary of the estate at 133 Vireo Hollow, located in the township of Durnfield. By late afternoon, I saw the sign. Durnfield, EST 1826. Population. The number had been scratched out. The town center was a scattering of buildings that looked like they hadn't seen use in years. A general store with shuttered windows. A post office with ivy creeping through the cracks. The only signs of life were the crows lining the power lines. I placed my bag down and stood still, listening. The silence wasn't complete. It had a texture, a weight to it. There was the creak of wood settling, the hum of something distant, and a ticking clock I hadn't yet found. It felt less like I was alone, and more like the house was pretending to be. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was clean but stiff. The wind moved through the trees outside in strange ways. Behind it was a narrow staircase that led downward. Not upward, like an attic. Down, into what should have been the second floor. I followed it. The steps creaked, but nothing collapsed. I counted 14 stairs before reaching a door. Plain wood, iron hinges, no markings. I opened it. Inside was a room I tried to find the door again later that evening. The small one at the end of the third floor hallway. But it wasn't there. The coat rack was. The wall was. The floorboards creaked in the same places. But the door had vanished. I searched every inch. Knocked on panels. Pressed against walls. Nothing. No outline. No draft. Just smooth, untouched wood. I told myself I was tired. That the house was. When I pried it open, I found an envelope. It was addressed to me. My name written in ink that looked barely dry. Inside was a single sheet of paper. If you found the watch, the house has started remembering you. No signature. No explanation. Just those words. I checked the door behind me. Still closed. Still alone. That night, I began hearing the footsteps. Soft, measured, deliberate. Always at night. Always just outside my door. They never tried the handle. Never knocked. They just passed. Down the hallway, stopping for a moment near my room. Then continuing on. I stopped turning off the light. I started keeping a journal. I wrote down every sound, every change, every dream. I didn't know why. It felt important, like the act of writing was keeping the thoughts from drifting away. Sometimes I'd wake up and find entries I didn't remember writing, names I didn't know, rooms I hadn't found yet. On the sixth day, the mirror in the hallway changed. It had been a plain rectangle in a wooden frame, cracked slightly at the bottom. But when I passed it that morning, the crack was gone. The frame was darker. The shape was round now. And my reflection didn't move with me. I froze. Blinked. My reflection stood still for a full second before catching up. I didn't look in that mirror again. By the seventh day, I'd stopped exploring. The house had begun to feel like something alive, something with moods and habits. It didn't like being ignored, but it liked being tested even less. The rooms would shift subtly. The bookshelf in the study would be on a different wall. The kitchen would have fewer drawers. Once, a hallway I had walked a dozen times ended in a wall. But always, the watch ticked. Always, the dreams continued. They were clearer now, more structured. I saw people in them. Some I recognized from photographs, others unfamiliar. A woman with long black hair who hummed as she walked the halls. A boy who ran past my legs and vanished into a door that didn't exist. I never spoke in the dreams, but I always felt like someone was listening. On the eighth night, I found a journal. It wasn't mine. It lay at the foot of the staircase, open to the first page. Day 1. The house is still asleep, but I think it knows I'm here. The handwriting was small and deliberate. I read the next few pages quickly. The door at the end of the third floor hallway only opens once. After that, it watches. Don't trust the reflections. They're only accurate when you're not looking directly at them. The house doesn't forget. It stores things. People. Time. Memories. The longer I stay, the more I remember things that aren't mine. I flipped to the last page. It was blank, except for a smear of ink and a fingerprint pressed into the paper. Not a full print, just a suggestion, but it looked familiar. That night, I sat in the foyer with all the lights on, the journal in my lap, and the pocket watch ticking on the table beside me. The house was silent, still, waiting, and from somewhere deep inside its bones, I thought I heard a voice. Only once. Soft, dry, a whisper. You've come back. I didn't sleep after that whisper. I sat there in the foyer until dawn, watching the light slowly bleed into the stained glass above the door. It changed the color of the room, bathing everything in dusty pink and blue hues, like the house was remembering how to feel warm again. But the warmth never reached me. The pocket watch had stopped ticking. Just like that, silent. It lay on the table next to the journal, its hands frozen at 3:17. I tapped it, shook it gently. Nothing. When I opened the lid, the word remember looked deeper, somehow. More pronounced, like the metal had grown tired of hiding it. Later that day, I found a door I hadn't noticed before. It was in the east wing, behind the old pantry. The door was narrow, wooden, and painted the same faded green as the hallway walls. It had no knob, just a keyhole, and when I pressed my ear to it, I didn't hear silence. I heard scratching. Faint, like fingernails on paper. Not desperate, not urgent, just persistent. I backed away slowly and didn't return. The dreams were stronger that night. I was walking through the house, but it wasn't mine anymore. The wallpaper was new. There were voices coming from rooms I didn't recognize, soft conversations, the clinking of glasses, the crackle of a fire. And then I saw him, standing at the top of the staircase. My uncle, Elias. His back was turned, but I knew it was him. The slouch of his shoulders, the way his hands hung at his sides. He stood there without moving, staring into a mirror that hadn't been there before. In the reflection, he looked older, hunched, and behind him, behind both of us, was the shape I'd seen before in the corner of the hidden room. Tall, thin, watching. I woke with a gasp, the sheets damp, the pocket watch ticking again. 3:17. Always 3:17. On the 10th day, I opened the door in the pantry. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But the scratching had stopped. The silence felt heavier than the noise. And something in me, something old, wanted to know what the house was trying to remember. The key was already in the lock. I swear I never put it there. The door opened to a staircase leading down. Narrow, steep, carved from stone. The air was damp and carried the faint scent of mildew and ash. I took a candle from the study and descended. The staircase wound deeper than I expected. I lost count of the steps. The air grew colder, thicker. My breath fogged in front of me. The flame fluttered. At the bottom, I found a room. Small, circular, stone walls lined with empty shelves. And in the center, a wooden chair. Someone was sitting in it. He looked like me. Not exactly. Older, gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale. But the resemblance was undeniable. He wore clothes like mine. He held the same pocket watch, clutched in both hands. He looked up when I entered. His mouth moved. No sound came out. I stepped closer. His lips trembled. He whispered something again. I leaned in. Don't stay. His eyes rolled back. His body stiffened. The pocket watch in his hands began ticking louder. And from behind me, up the stairs, I heard footsteps. I didn't run. My uncle, Elias. His back was turned, but I knew it was him. The slouch of his shoulders, the way his hands hung at his sides. He stood there without moving, staring into a mirror that hadn't been there before. In the reflection, he looked older, hunched, and behind him, behind both of us, was the shape I'd seen before in the corner of the hidden room. Tall, thin, watching. I woke with a gasp, the sheets damp, the pocket watch ticking again. 3:17. Always 3:17. On the 10th day, I opened the door in the pantry. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But the scratching had stopped. The silence felt heavier than the noise. And something in me, something old, wanted to know what the house was trying to remember. The key was already in the lock. I swear I never put it there. The door opened to a staircase leading down. Narrow, steep, carved from stone. The air was damp and carried the faint scent of mildew and ash. I took a candle from the study and descended. The staircase wound deeper than I expected. I lost count of the steps. The air grew colder, thicker. My breath fogged in front of me. The flame fluttered. At the bottom, I found a room. Small, circular, stone walls lined with empty shelves. And in the center, a wooden chair. Someone was sitting in it. He looked like me. Not exactly. Older, gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale. But the resemblance was undeniable. He wore clothes like mine. He held the same pocket watch, clutched in both hands. He looked up when I entered. His mouth moved. No sound came out. I stepped closer. His lips trembled. He whispered something again. I leaned in. Don't stay. His eyes rolled back. His body stiffened. The pocket watch in his hands began ticking louder. And from behind me, up the stairs, I heard footsteps. I didn't run. My uncle, Elias. His back was turned, but I knew it was him. The slouch of his shoulders. The way his hands hung at his sides. He stood there without moving, staring into a mirror that hadn't been there before. In the reflection, he looked older, hunched, and behind him, behind both of us, was the shape I'd seen before in the corner of the hidden room. Tall, thin, watching. I woke with a gasp, the sheets damp, the pocket watch ticking again. 3:17. Always 3:17. On the 10th day, I opened the door in the pantry. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But the scratching had stopped. The silence felt heavier than the noise. And something in me, something old, wanted to know what the house was trying to remember. The key was already in the lock. I swear I never put it there. The door opened to a staircase leading down. Narrow, steep, carved from stone. The air was damp and carried the faint scent of mildew and ash. I took a candle from the study and descended. The staircase wound deeper than I expected. I lost count of the steps. The air grew colder, thicker. My breath fogged in front of me. The flame fluttered. At the bottom, I found a room. Small, circular, stone walls lined with empty shelves. And in the center, a wooden chair. Someone was sitting in it. He looked like me. Not exactly. Older. Gaunt. Eyes sunken, skin pale. But the resemblance was undeniable. He wore clothes like mine. He held the same pocket watch, clutched in both hands. He looked up when I entered. His mouth moved. No sound came out. I stepped closer. His lips trembled. He whispered something again. I leaned in. Don't stay. His eyes rolled back. His body stiffened. The pocket watch in his hands began ticking louder. And from behind me, up the stairs, I heard footsteps. I didn't run, but his face had been scratched out, and mine was smiling. I returned to the cellar. The door beneath the pantry was still there, the steps still descending into the dark. I brought 2 candles this time, and a mirror. The figure didn't return. The room was still empty, except for the chair in the center. The pocket watch I'd taken with me from before ticked louder with every step. I set the mirror on the floor in front of the chair. And Saturday. At first, nothing happened. Then the mirror began to fog. Not from breath or cold, just slowly blurring like water spilling across glass. My reflection faded. And then, a new face appeared. My uncle. He looked directly at me. Lips moving, no sound. I leaned closer. His voice finally came through. Not from the mirror, but from the pocket watch. It's not about escape, he said. It's about what you take with you. You'll be tempted to open the wrong door. Don't. I asked him what that meant. But the mirror went black. When I stood, the chair was empty again. But something had been carved into the seat. A name. Mine. And the date next to it wasn't today. It was next week. Back in my room, I found all my journals burned. Not by flame, but emptied, the ink gone, the pages brittle, as if the house had taken them back. All except one. The first. The entry I never remembered writing. The house remembers because it was made to forget. We are not the first. We are the memory it tries to hold. I finally understood. The house was not haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by versions. Of us. Of those who stayed. Of those who tried to leave. Of those who tried to forget. The shapes we saw were echoes. Remnants left behind. That night, the house showed me the door again. The same one at the end of the hall. But this time, it was wide open. The room beyond was dark, but I could see outlines. Shelves. Chairs. Books. A fireplace. A home. Mine. A voice called softly from inside. Not my uncle. Not me. The house was watching me. I turned. All four walls were mirrors now, but none of them reflected me. Instead, I saw other versions of the room. In one mirror, the chair was overturned, blood beneath it. In another, books burning in the fireplace. In the third, the figure still stood, only now, its face was a stretched version of mine. And in the fourth, I was sitting in the chair, writing, exactly what I was doing when I first arrived. A loop, the same story, over and over. Someone else. Someone I almost remembered. Come see, it said. I stepped forward. I stepped through the door. The air inside was still, warm almost, but stale, like a room sealed too long, holding breath that wasn't mine. It looked like a parlor, familiar but not. The same heavy drapes, same worn rug as the one in my uncle's sitting room, but faded, as if from memory rather than time. And in the corner, a figure stood by the fireplace. Back turned, not moving. I knew, somehow, if I spoke, it would turn around. I didn't want it to. I took a step backward, and the door behind me closed with a soft click. The figure stirred, not by turning, but by thinning, fading, like smoke unraveling from a candle. It didn't vanish. It bled into the room itself, into the wallpaper, the rug, the flickering shadows in the corners. It whispered without sound. I screamed, not from fear, but fury, a desperate cry into the room that refused to let go of its memories. The mirrors cracked. Only the fourth stayed whole, the one where I sat at the desk. And in that reflection, I turned and looked at myself. Mouth moving. No sound, just the shape of words. Choose. The door opened behind me, back into the hallway. Only, it wasn't my hallway anymore. It was older. Peeling wallpaper, rotting floorboards. The air smelled of wet earth and burnt wood. At the far end, 7 doors waited. I knew them, each marked differently. One with my uncle's initials, one with mine, one scratched, like claws had dragged down the surface, one with no knob at all, one still breathing, one open into pitch dark, and one with light seeping through the cracks, warm and golden, like late afternoon sun in a room from childhood. The journal appeared in my hands again. Its pages flipped on their own, and the words came like before. Every version of this house belongs to a version of you, but only one door will forget you when you close it. Choose the one you've never dreamed of. I stood there for a long time. The breathing door was the most familiar, but something in my chest pulled me toward the door with no knob. Not out of curiosity, out of memory. I'd seen that door before. Years ago, in a fever dream as a child, when I had the flu so bad my parents thought they'd lose me. I remembered it clearly now. The door in the hospital hallway that had no knob. The one the nurse told me not to think about. I reached out and placed my palm against it. It was warm. The wall trembled. Behind me, the mirrors cracked further, one by one, until only the sound of ticking remained. The pocket watch, still in my coat. I took it out and held it against the door. The watch stopped. The door opened. Inside was nothing. Not darkness. Not light. Just absence. But I knew. This was forgetting. True forgetting. To pass through would mean letting go of everything the house had taught me. Everything I'd remembered. Everything that had clung to the edges of my dreams. To be free was not to escape. It was to let go. I stepped forward. And the house, my house, his house, our house, sighed like it had waited lifetimes for this. The door closed. And for the first time in what felt like centuries, there was no sound in the house at all. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound. It comes from the absence of self. That's what I stepped into. Not a void, not nothingness, but something more subtle, more unnerving, like slipping into a memory that had been erased, but not forgotten. like stepping out of your name, your body, your story. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. For the first time since I entered the house, I wasn't watched, not followed, not echoed, just still. I don't know how long I remained there. Time didn't move the way it did in the rest of the house. There was no watch ticking in my pocket, no footsteps down the hall, no journals, no mirrors. I was alone completely, until I heard the breath. It wasn't close. It wasn't far. It was beneath the silence. Steady, familiar. And I realized I wasn't the only one who had made this choice. Shapes began to form in the haze around me. Shadows first, then colors, then walls, not the old house. Not even a house, exactly. It looked like the inside of a memory that belonged to someone else. A school hallway, blue lockers, a flickering fluorescent light above, the smell of old paper and dust, and a figure standing at the far end. Not facing me, just waiting. It didn't move until I spoke. Who are you? The answer didn't come with words. Instead, the hallway shifted. Became a bedroom, my childhood bedroom. The same toy chest, the crooked bookshelf, the wallpaper with tiny sailing ships. On the bed, a boy, maybe 8 or 9. His back to me. I approached slowly. He turned. It was me, but not quite. His eyes were darker, older, and there was something in the way he smiled, too calm, too knowing. You're the version who stayed, I said aloud. He nodded. You're the memory the house wanted to keep. He shook his head slowly. No, he said finally, voice flat, almost brittle. I'm the memory you wanted to keep. I backed away. He didn't follow. I had to forget, I whispered. Yes, he said, but that means forgetting me too. And I understood. To be free of the house, I had to leave behind the parts of me it had built. Not just the fear, not just the stories, but the people I had been inside it. The selves I had clung to, out of comfort, out of guilt, out of grief. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and let him go. The room fell away. Walls dissolved, and this time there was light. A warm morning glow, birds outside a real window, wind and real trees. My body lying in a bed I hadn't seen in months. Not the house. My home, where I'd lived before I went looking for answers. Before the letter from my uncle, before Hollow Street. I sat up. Everything felt dull, distant, like waking from anesthesia. But I was here. Real. I checked my phone. Weeks had passed. The world had moved on without me. And yet, not everything had returned. I reached for the old journal I kept on my desk. Blank. Every page. The memory of the house was gone. Almost. That night, I dreamed of the door with no knob. But this time, it wasn't sealed. It was open, and on the other side, there was a forest bathed in moonlight. And my uncle stood among the trees. He didn't speak, just raised one hand, palm out, as if in farewell, then turned and walked away into the shadows. I woke up crying, not from fear, from the relief of release. Some places are meant to be remembered. Others are meant to remember us. But some were only ever meant to let go.